So thank you all for joining me today. And just one more time for those of you who are just now getting logged in, um, I'm going to be recording today's session. I'll be sharing the recording link with you all in the follow-up resources. This isn't going to be like our standard GW blogs overview where we kind of go over the whole service. We're really just going to be looking at the new Gutenberg editor today, how it's different from the classic text WYSIWYG editor. And for a general overview of GW blogs, along with the follow-up recording of today's session, I'll send you a link to a previous recording we did as well, just in case this is your first time using GW blogs or you just needed a refresher, something along those lines. We want to make sure you have that information as well. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Oh, and by the way, if you do have any questions as we're going through today's session, I have a couple of my colleagues on the WebEx with us. The first one is Annette Thompson. So if you wanted to ask any questions, feel free to use the WebEx chat, and you can address it directly to her. We also have on the WebEx Jill and Terry as well. So those are my three colleagues that are joining us today. So if you wanted to ask a question and maybe you weren't comfortable putting it out there for everybody to see, you can specifically in the WebEx chat reach out to one of them and they can answer your question for you. All right, so you should all be seeing my screen right now with the GW Online Strategy GW blog site up. It's using the Tiny Framework theme, and it's pretty simple, nothing too special going on. And that is intentional just to, kind of not be too distracting, to show you how things work out of the box with the service. So right now, if I wanted to create a new blog post or a static page on the site, I could go up here to New and go ahead and click on Page or Post, and could go ahead and just like we're used to right now, I could start putting in information for my new page. So I could say this is my page title. And then down here we have what is the current, or actually now it's the old content editor. This is called a What You See is What You Get editor, and the acronym for that is WYSIWYG. You'll hear people say that a lot. And it just mimics the standard things that you would see in a word processor. Not quite as robust here in WordPress, but by and large, you see the options that you're used to seeing in like a Microsoft Word, or I think on the Mac version, the program's called Pages. So all of those formatting options that you're used to seeing in those programs are represented here, along with some specific ones that are specific to website content management. And then because this is WordPress and you have the ability to extend the functionality of your website using plugins, you'll also see some buttons above your WYSIWYG here. So for instance, I have the plugin for Pixabay images turned on so that I can search for free to use images on the website, out on the internet in general, and have them used on my website without having to worry about copyright infringement. This one you see over here, this is the Formidable Forms plugin. So I can click on that and have a form show up on this page that I'm creating at this moment. But in general, if I just wanted to be editing my content right now, I could just start putting some text into this text box here on my page. So I'm going to switch over here to this other browser tab where I've got some some text available, and I will just copy that, go ahead and paste that into my page. And if I wanted to have an image in there, again, I could place my cursor wherever I want the image, use my Pixabay plugin to locate something, and I'm a big fan of puppies, so I'm going to search for puppies, and we're going to put this cute little guy in here. I think I've actually used him before. Just say insert into post, and now I've got my puppy image in there. So now if I felt like this page was ready to go, I'd go over here to my publishing panel, and I'd go ahead and click the publish button. And then on the front end, once that is saved, I've got my page, and then if I needed to go in and edit it, I would just click on that edit link or the one up here in the top editor, and I would make whatever edits I needed to do and just repeat the process that I just did. So that's what we're used to doing with the current/old WYSIWYG editor. With the upgrade to WordPress 5.1.1, a new editor was introduced to WordPress, and that is called the block editor. It is available to everybody now. It's not turned on the network by default, but if you have administrator permissions on your site, you can go to Settings and then Writing, and you'll see these two options: Default Editor for all users and Allow users to switch editors. So you can see right now we're using the classic WYSIWYG editor. If I wanted to switch now to the new one, I would simply toggle that block editor radio button and click Save Changes. And you also have the option, again, to allow all users to switch between the two editors or not. So I believe that means each individual user can determine what they want their editing experience to be. I haven't tested that, so I can't say for 100% sure. But I'm going to go ahead, switch myself to the block editor. I click the Save Changes button, and we can see now it says that my settings have been saved. So now, when I go to create a page, you can see I've got this entire new interface. So now instead of that WYSIWYG editor that we've seen before, we now just have what they refer to as blocks in the editing space, and now I need to add my content in there. So the idea with this was to make it easier to add more elements to your page in one space, so you wouldn't have to kind of go out to all these various plugins to create different sort of dynamic or fun things to the page. You're supposed to be able to do it all within the context of this content creation area. And when you initially turn it on, you'll get some helpful sort of pop-ups and tooltips along the way to guide you through it. But again, we're also doing this walkthrough with you guys to just show you what we've seen with our testing and just kind of walk you through how you would use the Gutenberg editor from what we've seen. So I'm going to go ahead and just close this out. If you want to look at those tooltips when you turn it on, feel free to do that. I'm going to go ahead and disable it for now. So the first thing that it's prompting me to do is to add a title. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in my Gutenberg page as my title. And then if I go down here, as I hover in the next block region on the page, I have some in-context menu options that pop up. As soon as I move out of that area, those in-context menu options go away. You have to be within the block area that you want to start adding any type of content to in order to see those options. So the first one that let's start from left to right. So the first one here is to add a block. You actually don't have to click this because there's one waiting for you by default. So at the very beginning of the page, you don't have to click that add block one. You can immediately just start typing or place your cursor in there to choose an element. The ones that you see over here, these are some sort of most commonly used elements that a person might want to add, a content editor might want to add on the page. So the first one being just to add an image, the second one being to add a subhead, and then the third one being to add a photo gallery. So those are some pretty commonly used elements that people want to add to their page. So they created some shortcuts for you guys over here to the right-hand side. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this plus icon for a block just to show you what the options are. So the first thing you're going to see are a number of icons and text links here for the most commonly used elements that people want to add to their page. So regular paragraph text, an image, a subhead, and a gallery. Again, the same ones that were represented in those shortcuts, but then also quick links list, quotes, audio files, cover, which is like a cover image, and then a document upload. You can actually, I'm not sure how well it comes across on the WebEx screen, but you can see that as I'm hovering over where it says most used, that area actually gets shaded in a little bit. And there's also this little arrow caret that's pointing up. This is actually a collapsible section. So if you click on that, it will collapse. And you can see there are a lot of other types of blocks that you can add into your page. And we'll kind of go through each one of these in a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and get started just adding some text to the page. So I still have that lorem ipsum text that I copied earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click and do paste and match style. So now that I've got my text in there, you can see two things are going on. The first thing you can see is that there are actually two individual blocks, and these are the two individual paragraphs that I had previously copied. There's one paragraph here, one paragraph here. It does not get pasted in as one giant block. It actually does get added as two individual blocks, and that allows you to granularly edit what's going on in each individual paragraph, and then potentially place something in between them if you would like to. When you add your text to the page, you get some more in-context menu options available to you. So this one here that's sort of flipping back and forth between the paragraph P icon and those sort of circular arrows, it's an option to change this block type. So I can change it from being just basic plain text to any one of these options. I'm going to leave it as is, but you can also see with your other in-context menu options, you have some of those standard text formatting options that we're used to seeing. So paragraph alignment, some simple bolding and italics, adding links. You can also strike through that option. And then you've got this three-dot menu icon at the very end that will give you some additional options in there. So some of this is administrative, and some of it actually will affect the front end. So you can say you want to duplicate this particular menu block. You have the option to insert something before or after. You have this option to edit as HTML, and you're actually going to see this for every block that you might add to the page. That allows you, if you're comfortable with it, to make edits to any given block using HTML markup as opposed to using sort of the front end, what you see is what you get type version instead. So if you're not comfortable with it, don't worry about using that, but it is available for those of you who do like to kind of play around a little bit with the HTML markup. And then if you want to go back, you'll just click on that three-dot menu icon and just go back to edit visually, and that will take you back to the standard kind of front-end view of it instead. You'll notice as I'm hovering over this second option lower down here on the bottom, I get this plus icon. So that's allowing me to add a new block, just kind of like it says right there. It's pretty straightforward as far as what it does. So once I add a new block, it automatically added it above because it knows that it's been designed, and the expectation is that if you're clicking on this one, the expectation is that you want to add something between these two blocks. If there was something that I actually wanted to add underneath and you're wondering, well, how do I add something now beneath this paragraph, what you'll actually want to do is over here in the upper left, once you start adding blocks, you will see an option to add a new block. So your little plus icon is always there. You also get your undo and your redo icons as you're making changes. The I information icon will give you just a quick heads up on what you have going on your page. So the number of blocks, word count, heading counts if they're there, so on and so forth. So it's a nice little quick snapshot of what's going on your page. And then you also have this hierarchy block navigation option. So you can see here the different things that you have added to the page at this point. And if you click on one, it will take you directly to that block, but it's obviously pretty easy just to scroll over here or hover your mouse over here and get into the area you want. But this is where you would go, this plus icon, to add a new block beneath your paragraph section. So, or actually, it's doing it over the highlighted section that I have in that moment. So if I wanted something beneath my paragraph, I need to make sure that's the last active block that I have highlighted. And then I can go ahead and start putting in something new on the page. So I'm going to keep it boring for now, and I'm just going to do another paragraph. But I'm going to go back up here to where we added this image option in here, and we're going to add something from the media library. Let's do our sweet little puppy again. And we're going to click select. And now we've got our puppy in there. Something else that you may or may not have noticed is that as you're adding blocks to your page, over here in your right-hand panel where you're used to, in the previous editor, just see your publishing options and the space for adding like a main image, you actually now get what's more along the lines of configuration options. So you have two tabs here to toggle through. There's the document tab, which is showing some of those classic things that we're used to, so the visibility and status of your page, that featured image option, so on and so forth. But then this block tab gets activated whenever, or will have options display, I should say, whenever you actually have a block actively highlighted, and you can see some configuration options that you have on the block here. So, for instance, I can change my font size if I wanted it to be a different font size. These are the standard sizes that you'll see really in any WordPress site: small, normal, medium, large, and huge. I'm going to go back to normal. You can also set a specific number if you would like to. There's an option here for drop cap, which gives you that nice big first capital letter at the beginning of your paragraph if you would like that, and some additional settings, so on and so forth. The options that you're going to see here in your block configuration are going to change depending on the type of block that you've added to the page. So now that we're on the image blocks, we have the image setting panel options. The most important one here is your alt text. You should always be putting alt text on your images, people. So as a reminder, your alt text is what screen readers will read aloud to somebody who cannot see the image for themselves for whatever reason. It will also display for somebody who has images disabled, or perhaps they're on a low bandwidth connection and the image can't load. This is what's going to let them know what's going on in this photo. So remember, your alt text is supposed to be describing what's going on in your photo. So we can put our alt text at an adorable pug puppy stares into our souls because he's just so cute. If this was an image that had text on it, we would want to make sure that text is represented here. We don't want to be using things like file names. We don't want to be using very vague descriptions. Like if this was something for commencement, we wouldn't just say commencement 2019. We would literally need to say what's going on, what action is going on in that photo. If it's somebody, a headshot of somebody, you can just put that person's name. If that person is actively doing something, you can go a little bit further and say, you know, President LeBlanc greets students on Kogan Plaza, something along those lines. But the point is you want to make sure that whatever text you have here, if your eyes were closed right now and somebody read this aloud to you, you would understand what's going on in this photo. So always make sure that you're filling in your alt text. And then again, there are some additional configuration options available based on the fact that this is an image. So image size, the specific dimensions, or perhaps doing it at percentages, so on and so forth. So keep your eye on those block configurations because, again, those are going to give you some additional options. You can even see here that the ability to link that photo is there. You might have been looking for it here, and you actually can access it here, but it's also available for you over here on the right side. So it's really about giving you a lot more information in one place to manage your content as you're adding it to the page. Another option that is available on this page is if you, again, click on, and I think it's specific to the text one. I'd have to do a little bit more testing. But something a lot of people like to do is have more than one column on their page. They don't just want a single column of content on their page. So if you toggle this menu icon, there is, where is it? I've lost it. I thought it was in here. I might need to actually, there's an option to add additional columns. I don't want to just leave you guys on the hook. So there's an option to add additional columns. It's one of the, oh, that's right. It's one of the block types. So I need to actually change this from a single paragraph option to layout elements. And then you'll see here we have the option for columns. So once you put in your column options, you're initially presented with just a cursor to add some text in there. I'm going to grab just a little bit of this text because it's going to get kind of crazy if I put a lot of text in this skinny column. And then over here to the right, I have the ability to add something additional if I wanted to. So I can add another image, a quote, so on and so forth, whatever I want that element to be. But I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that. You do have the ability to put additional columns in using the new Gutenberg block editor, and that's going to be under layout elements. So let's actually take a look at some of the other options that you have in here. We're not going to click through every single one. That would just take too long, but I do want to kind of walk you guys through all of them. So you have your inline image, which is just exactly what it sounds like, adding an image in line with your text. You have, again, your common blocks, so paragraph, image, heading, which this one, by the way, is like your subhead, so putting in your H2, H3, H4 on the page. Those are your hierarchical subheads to define the topics of the content on your page. Photo gallery, a list of bullet points or links if you want it to be. Quote, I'll go ahead and click on that one just so you guys can kind of see it. It's slightly different than, you know, just your regular body text. It's going to have some additional styling in there. Think along the lines of like a testimonial. It's really designed to be that sort of thing. So you can put a citation in there if you want. I'm just going to put this. Gosh, I keep doing that. Now I just can't spell. This is my citation. And then, oh, now I've got my in context menu options again. So I'm going to go ahead and click plus here. I'm going to collapse most used. And we're going to keep going with common blocks. So we just looked at quote. You have your heading for your subheads. Audio, if you have an audio file you want to have. I know a lot of people are getting into like podcasting, things like that. You can add those direct files through here. Cover is actually a really interesting one. So I'll go ahead and click on this because I think this is one a lot of you will like to use as well. So I'm going to drop that in there. I'm going to click on Media Library, and I'm going to pick this nice image of the cherry blossoms. So what cover does is it allows you to put an image in there, but something that a lot of people like to do nowadays is to put some text on top of that image. So you can kind of see that it has a sort of, it's faded out the background image so that you can get some text on top of there. So then we can go ahead and just say, this would be some sort of headline or title, obviously, but I'm just going to use it more like alt text. I'm going to say cherry blossoms bloom on the tidal basin. And so that kind of gives you an idea of what this is going to look like. And my page is getting a little messy, and it's also not really in the best order for all of the elements. So let's talk about ordering things. When you're hovered over an active block on the page, and let's say you don't like where it is right now, you get a couple of options that pop up again in context of the block that you're currently highlighting to move it. So the first one is you can see this sort of toggle button that when you hover over it with your mouse, you get the little grabby hand. The other option is just a simple arrow that you can click up, and it will move that item up. So maybe my cover photo is something I want at the top of my page because that just, you know, makes more sense. And then maybe I want to have some text in there. And then the next thing I want is to have my quote higher on the page. So let's go ahead and drag that bad boy up. Oops, I lost it. I can drag it up, and you can see that I get that active line right there showing where it's going to end up when I release. And it's a little difficult to do because I've got so much stuff already on here. So I'm going to start just using my arrows because that's just a little bit easier. But it's just that easy to go ahead and to move the blocks around on the page. So you don't really have to do a lot of whole cut and paste the way that you do with the text editor because it gives you the ability to literally just drag something into the place that you want it. I see there are a few questions in there. It looks like they are getting answered, so I'm going to go ahead and keep going. So let's say we want to add a new block to our page. We're going to click on our plus icon, collapse that most used, and we're going to go back into now looking at the formatting options. So you have the ability here to add a block for specifically for code if there's some sort of HTML that you want to add. I believe JavaScript is also supported to some extent. CSS is definitely supported, things along those lines. You can see you have a number of options for that. So code and custom HTML, you can drop one of those in. You can drop in, if you really want to, that classic WYSIWYG editor. If there's a block that you've added that you don't want, when you click on the menu icon at the very end, the very last option is always to remove block. So do know that that option is in there for you guys. Be careful with it because I believe when you remove a block, you also remove the content itself. So if there's content in that block that you want to keep, make sure you do have that copied somewhere that you can access again before you remove the block. Going back into our formatting options, we've got table, pull quote, verse, which we didn't know what that was, so we played with it, and it really is just whatever text that you put into the verse block, it's going to be exactly like you type it in there. So if you put a line of text in there that scrolls clear across the side of your page, like in a single continuous line, that's how it's going to publish on the front end, because it's trying to respect the fact that maybe you're doing something artistic, I guess. So yeah, your verse block, it's the thought of it is that it's like poetry. So words as art. It's not going to make any changes to the way that you put it in. It's not going to wrap your text. It's not going to put, fancy styles on it. It's just going to go in exactly as is. So that's what verse one is. I don't think a lot of us are going to have a lot of use for that. We already took a little bit of look at the layout elements. So we looked at columns. You can put buttons in there as well if you just want to have a quick button link to something. Media and text side by side. The more option, this is something we're more used to seeing like with excerpts and summaries on a blog feed page or a news feed type thing, where you see a little bit of summary text and then a read more link. That's what that more is. Page break is pretty similar. You can put a separating line in between some text. So if you wanted to, instead of having this be two individual blocks of paragraph text, if you just wanted to have a separator line in there, you could do that. Some spacing elements as well. If you have plugins turned on, this is a carryover from the classic editor as well. It's just now that you can access it in context of your page. When you turn on plugins, there are widgets typically associated with that functionality, that plugins functionality. And there's also going to be widgets that are available just as a standard part of WordPress. So I mentioned earlier I have the Formidable Forms plugin turned on this site, and that allows me to create forms. By accessing the widgets block within the context of the page, I can now easily drop in my Formidable form onto my page if I would like to. So that's a sort of taking the place of where the button was above the WYSIWYG editor previously. Now it's just available in the widgets box. And then finally, you have your option for embeds, and it's pretty robust as far as the different services that it supports. So I don't think that there's going to be much of a missing need here for the type of service that you might want to embed something for. However, if you do not see a specific embed for your service, there is this generic embed option that you can use here, the very first one. But again, they tried really hard to make sure that the major social media and media services, even international ones, are represented here, so that it's specifically going to recognize and respect whatever embed code that service is using. But again, if you don't see your service listed, there is a generic one that's just called embed, and you can use that instead. So now that I've got my really funky page started, I'm going to go ahead and actually publish my page. And I can do that just by clicking the publish option here. It is going to, now as a part of the new WordPress 5.1.1 interface, it's going to confirm that you do want to publish that page and give you another heads up on the status as far as if it's going to be public or not. All of the same options are there, and as well as the options for post-dating it or even pre-dating it if you need to. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say publish. And just like before, it doesn't take you to the published view of your page. It does give you the confirmation that the page was published and a view page link. So I'm going to click on that. And now we can just see on the front end of my page, my big cover photo is there, my text, my quote, my cute puppy, my two columns, one being empty, and then that basic text that I had down there at the end. When I'm ready to go back in, I still have the same options for clicking edit down here at the bottom. I'm not sure if you guys can see that well on the screen. And then again, also at the top of the page, I can just click on that edit link and then go back in and make whatever edits I necessarily need to make. So that is what you would do if you were just using the Gutenberg editor on a page on your WordPress site. Again, not going to go into all the bells and whistles and frills of some of the more dynamic elements, but just kind of wanted to walk you through that. And I just want to see if you guys have any questions before I specifically show you, what it's going to look like if you're using Gutenberg while having the Divi Builder plugin enabled. So there's a question of if you have pages created using the WYSIWYG editor, will it convert over to block editing when you enable it? I see Annette did answer that one. You can choose when a given page switches to the block editor and whether or not you want that to be the default. So yeah, so let's go to an existing page that I already have now that I've got my block editor enabled. So you can see when I hover over this page, I do get two options. The first one being to edit with the block editor, and the second option being to edit with the classic editor. So yes, you do get the option to choose which interface you want to use once you enable the Gutenberg editor on your site for pre-existing content. Let's see. It looks like we have a couple questions in relation to Divi, so I'm going to take a look at this in just a moment. Ooh, the text keeps moving. Okay. So will it maintain layout regardless of editor? I'm not sure I fully understand that question. Your content shouldn't shift places. This is just a change in the back-end admin. It's not a change in the front-end display. So content should not shift around just because you're using the block editor versus the classic WYSIWYG editor. That should still stay the same. But I do want to take a look at what you'll see if you're using the Divi Builder plugin. And I thought I had a Divi Builder. Oh, yeah, there I do. So I built a Divi Builder page just prior to the start of this session, actually. You can see it looks a little bit funky on the back end because I don't actually have that plugin enabled right now. If you view the front end of my page, also looks a little bit funky because this was built specifically using the Divi Builder plugin, so it's plugging in its own special code that plugin comes with. So I'm going to go back into my dashboard. I'm going to go to plugins, and I'm going to search for the Divi Builder plugin. We're going to go ahead and activate that. And then now if I go back to my Divi Builder page, and Divi's loading a little slow for me today, so I do apologize for that. You know, I wonder if it has to do with the VPN. I'm going to disconnect from that, and hopefully I won't need. I'm just going to refresh the page. It'll be faster. Okay. So yeah, I think the VPN was causing me to have some hiccups there. Hopefully I didn't lose you guys in the process of disconnecting from the VPN. Just give me a holler on the chat if you're still there, but I'm going to go ahead and keep going. But we can see now that I've enabled the Divi Builder plugin, this backend editor of the page. Thanks, Annette. The backend editor of the page has the Divi Builder layout there. If I click on View Page, which I'm going to do in a new tab, I can also see that my Divi Builder page is back in action. All of the elements that I previously added are there. So something that is different, though, when you have a previously built page with Divi Builder and you go in to edit it once you have Gutenberg enabled. And I don't get this consistently. I wish I could walk you guys through it and say this is consistently going to happen. It doesn't always consistently happen, unfortunately, for me. So I'm going to see if I can get the system to kind of show me the view that is a little bit unintuitive when you need to edit the page. So I'm going to click on View Page, and then down at the bottom, I'm going to click on this Edit tab, and we'll see what we get. It's still giving me the option to change it. Let's see what happens if we do build on the front end. Okay, here we go. So this is what I saw happen the first couple of times I tried to edit a previously built Divi Builder page. I clicked on the button to edit the page, whether that was at the top, the bottom of the page, in the back end. I got that sort of white screen with the loading icon, and then I got a blank screen. And I kind of panicked because I thought I lost everything. But when I clicked on edit again, it took me back into the back end of the site, and sometimes I would see this, but sometimes I would see, and let's see if it does it to me this time, I would see this sort of front end view where I would get this loading, and then I would get these, it's not doing it. I would get these three boxes. I should have taken a screenshot for you guys. The first one says, and it's prompting you to say what type of editing experience you want to use. So the first one says, use pre-existing content. The one in the middle asks if you want to use a pre-made Divi Builder template. And then the last option, the third box, asks you if you want to clone the content. And it looks really confusing because you're thinking, all I want to do is edit my page. So then what you need to do is click on that first box where it says use pre-existing content, and that's going to give you the ability to edit your Divi Builder page. And I don't know why it's a little bit buggy as far as when and when it does not show that to you, but I do know that it definitely caused me to panic a little bit, so I can fully understand if one of you sees it and panics as well. Nothing is broken, nothing is missing. It's just that the system is sort of trying to sift between all the various options it now has for the different editors, because the classic editor is in play, the Gutenberg editor is in play, and if you're using Divi Builder, now the Divi Builder editor is in play. And it also needs to know with the Divi Builder editor if you want to go back to switching to one of the standard WordPress editors, if you want to build it out in the front end versus the back end as we see here. Like, there's just a lot of options. So it does make a little bit of sense that the system could get hiccuped along the way, but nothing should be lost. Again, if you get to that that interface on the front end where it gives you those three boxes that says, you know, do you want to use pre-existing content? Do you want to use a pre-made template from Divi Builder, or do you want to clone this page? If you're just editing your page and you just want to, you know, fix a link or add a photo, something like that, click on that first box that says you want to use the pre-existing content, and you'll be able to make your edits as necessary. And I really do wish that it would have given me that hiccup now, but I guess I've clicked past it enough times at this point that it no longer does it to me. But you can see that I've got my Divi Builder page here, and it's very similar to the editor, the Gutenberg editor, as far as how you would edit content. It's all in context of what I have on the page, so that I can just add things as I'm hovering over a given section. So if you've used Divi Builder before, Gutenberg really has that same philosophy. The actual interface that you're using is just going to be a little bit different, and those are like stylistic choices, but the philosophy is the same. It's about adding elements to your page in one place without having to kind of go all over the back end of the admin and pull things together. But you can, you know, have one page that's using Divi Builder, one page that's using Gutenberg, and for now, you can have another page that's using the classic WYSIWYG editor, and there should not be any conflict between using those three options. But that is everything that I had for you guys as far as today's agenda, but I do want to know if you have any questions, if I went over something too fast, if I didn't go over something at all that you're curious about, if you have a specific use case that you would like us to test now so that you don't feel like you're going to blow your website up, I'm happy to do that now as well. Feel free to put any questions you might have in the chat. You can also go ahead and take yourself off of mute if you would like to and just ask over the audio. I'm happy to take questions that way as well. So, any questions? Not seeing anything just yet. So can you edit a previously created basic page switching it to the block editor? Yes, you can. So let's go ahead and go back into my dashboard. Yes, I'm discarding my changes. We will go to all pages. And let's take a look at this admin blog 101 page. I truly, actually no, about us. I know it's a pretty vanilla looking page. So I'm going to click this option when I'm hovering over it and say edit with the block editor. And so this was just a simple page that had a title, a subtitle, and some simple text there. So you can see it's actually defaulting it to using, even though I'm in the block editor interface, you can see I've got all of those options here. It's defaulting to using the classic editor as the block on the page. So I can keep going as is, or if I would like to, I can actually break this up into some of the new block styles. So for instance, I can put heading here, and I can say, what, that's not how you spell what is lorem ipsum, and then from there I can just grab that body text and cut that out, and then I can, in a new block, I can go ahead and just paste that in. Oh, that was the subhead block. Remove that. Paragraph. And then I can keep going now using the block editor instead, and I can remove this one if I wanted to. And there was probably a faster way to do that, but since it was such a short paragraph, I just went ahead and broke it out manually like that. I would not be surprised if there was some way in there to convert it the way that on this paragraph one we have the conversion option for heading and so on and so forth. But again, it was such a short, simple paragraph, I went ahead and I just did the manual copy paste. But you definitely do have the ability to edit a page that was previously done with the classic WYSIWYG editor in the block editor. And again, it has that classic WYSIWYG editor as a block option if that's what you're more comfortable working with. Let's see. When you add links, say links to posts from a page, have you found any problems? I have not found problems with adding links previously. If there's something that you're seeing an issue with adding links, definitely reach out to us outside of this session. We'll be happy to take a look at that because you shouldn't be having any issues when you're adding links on your pages. So, for instance, I can highlight the lorem ipsum is simply dummy text, and I can say that I want this to be a link. I would click on my link icon here. The option that you're going to have is, and this is pretty standard to what you should have been seeing before, but I can paste in the external website link, which in this case, this would be just the lipsum.com website. I could also start typing in the name of the page, and WordPress is going to look for a pre-existing page that matches what I'm typing in. So those are really the two ways that you would add a link. You always want to make sure you're making it an in-context link, so that just means highlighting the plain language description of whatever it is you're linking to or your link is about, and then you would either paste in your external website's URL, or you would start typing in the name of the WordPress page on your website into this field, and then you would set the option to open it in a new tab as necessary if it was, I didn't click enter, if it was an external website link like my Lipsum text is. So I do want to make sure I go through the full process just to show you guys what you're supposed to do. Once you have your link information set up, you have to be sure to either click enter on your keyboard or click this apply button. If you just click outside of the box, it does not apply the link. And I've done that more times than is logical. But yeah, you should not, that should be working for you to create a link regardless of whether you're using the classic WYSIWYG, the block editor, or the Divi Builder editor. So if you are experiencing issues, please reach out to us outside of this session, and we're happy to take a look at that with you in an office hour session. Let's see. So one more time, I do want to look at, I'm going to go ahead and click update on this page. There's a question about showing, again, how to see all of the different blocks that you might have on a given page. So I'm going to go back over into our Gutenberg page and click on that edit with block editor option. So again, if you want to see all of the different elements that you have going on a page, you're going to click on this information I, lowercase I letter icon, and it's going to give you, sorry, the one next to it, the hierarchy one. I always want to click on information because to me that's the information I want. It's actually this one, the one that kind of looks like a table of contents. This is going to show you the hierarchy of the blocks that you have on your page, so you can quickly see what you've added on to the page in the order that those items are in. And then if you click on one, it will kind of serve as a jump link and take you down to that element so you can immediately start navigating it, which might be the case if you have a really long page, but in general, I'm not sure how much use people are going to get out of that particular shortcut. Let's see if there are any other questions in the chat. Okay, I'm not seeing any new questions, so I think that about covers it. We did record today's session, so I'll be sharing that with everybody as soon as the link is available, as well as a link to one of our previously recorded overviews of the GW blog session, so you kind of have the two that you can look at together. And thank you very much for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your afternoons.